Hey, what's going on, everybody? Timmy, aka Ecoside Fiend here. So today I'm going to tell you the final story in my series of stories that I've had that have happened to me that are kind of supernatural or paranormal. Just something that happened to me that's kind of weird and I just can't explain. So I've had a few other stories before this. I'll put links for them in the description if you want to check those out. Um, as usual, before we get into this, if you haven't watched any of my other videos, if you're just checking this out, I am atheist. I'm very skeptical. I question everything. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in hauntings. I don't believe that UFOs or little green men have visited here, although I do believe in uh, life elsewhere in this gigantic universe, but not that they've been here. I don't believe people have been abducted, anything like that. So with that being said, I've had a few experiences that have happened to me that I can't explain. Again, done a few videos before. If you want to check those out, links will be in the description. So this final one is the one I think is, to me, is the creepiest. This didn't happen directly to me; it was my neighbor, but I was kind of witnessed the whole entire story unfold. So I feel I can chime in on it. And this one I have absolutely no explanation for whatsoever. So when this is all done, if anybody has any explanations, I would love to hear them because I've got nothing. So this one, still to this day, creeps me the fuck out. So, all right. So again, I grew up in Belmont. Um, so right around the corner from me, so like I grew up on a little side street that my folks still live right here in the house that I grew up in. And you go around the corner, and then there was another house here. So we were like right through the woods. Our backyard's kind of connected with some woods in between. And then the driveways are around the corner from each other on a curve, same street. Jim was my neighbor. He grew up like he moved in there when with his family when he was 7. He's just a couple months younger than me. I was also 7. Um, and we met almost right away, and we were best friends all through school. High school, we kind of drifted apart just a little bit, just because I got really into skateboarding, and he didn't really, and but we were still friends. We still hung out. It just wasn't we weren't as close, and we still see each other to this day. But it's not. He lives actually quite a ways away now. He's still in the area, but he's a long ways away from me, and he's married and has a family and stuff. So we don't see each other as much, but we're still friends. So the house he moved into was, and it's still there. His family doesn't live there anymore, but somebody else moved in when they moved out. So the house is still there. It's one of the oldest in Belmont. It wasn't the oldest, but among the oldest. It was old, old farmhouse, and like the basement was literally just like you went down like a flight of stairs and another little set, and went to a sand floor. It's essentially just like a the cellar was essentially just the support frame for the house. Just very small. You could put a few things down there, but not much. Um, and very old house. And then they also, at this point in time when this happened, their house they still had to heat it with like wood all winter. So throughout the summer, his dad would buy big bushels of wood and then chop it up. And so like throughout the winter, they had to keep a fire going in their fireplace all winter long to heat their house. So I'm gonna say probably when we were about 9, maybe 10. I'm gonna say 10. That sounds more like it. He comes over to my house one time and he was just kind of like telling me like he said he woke up in the middle of the night and his dog he had a dog named Butch. It was kind of like a hunting type of dog and he he would always sleep in Jim's room and so Jim said he woke up and Butch was sitting at the door. He had his door shut and he was whining, and he's like, oh, I mean, maybe he has to go outside. So he opened up the door, got up opened up the door and he was gonna bring him downstairs and let him out, and then wait for him to come back in. But he said so he opened up the door and Jim started walking out the hallway and Butch wouldn't budge, and he's like, it's so weird. He just sat there like looking at the stairs and like whining, and so he's like, finally, I just came back in, shut the door, and went back to bed, and it's like, that was weird, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. So, we just kind of like, dogs will be dogs, I guess, and so, I don't know, it was a few months later, maybe a half a year later or something. He comes over, and it was one day, and he was like, you could tell he was freaked out, and he was like, dude, he's like, I saw a ghost in my house last night. I was like, and I was kind of like, whatever. I think I believed in ghosts back then, but I was just still like, no, you didn't see a ghost. And he's like, yeah, and he said he woke up again with Butch sitting at the door, and on looking at his bedroom door, and whining again like he had done before. And so he said he got up and he kind of like went over, creeped over to the door, crept over, however you want to say it, opened up the door, and he said standing out in the hallway was he said like a translucent, transparent figure. It was a guy wearing old style clothes. He's like like black slacks and like a black coat with a collared shirt and a tie, and like he said he was wearing like a like one of those flat like a hat, but like the with the brim all the way around, but like just the flat little part that just sits high on the head, and he had a white beard. He said Jim said he opened up the door, and of course, like the door made noise. He said the figure turned and looked at him, and then turned and like just kind of like floated down the stairs. He said he could kind of see his legs moving, but like the legs didn't go to the floor, and down the stairs, and then it's kind of dissipated, and he said quick like shut his door and jumped out, ran and hid under the covers of his bed, and he was freaked out as he was telling me. It seemed I was like he genuinely like believed that he saw it, and I'm like, you were probably just dreaming, and he's like, I don't know, man, it felt really real. And I was like, yeah, I mean that stuff does, but it's you probably didn't see anything. He's like, I don't know, and so I don't know, again, maybe another few months later, again, we were hanging out. I don't remember if I went over there, he came over to my house or whatever, but he was like telling me that once again they woke up, Butch sitting at the door whining. He said he opened up the door, the guy was out in the hallway again. I turned and looked at him and started going down the stairs. So Jim said he just like worked up the courage and went out in the hallway and started going down the stairs. Kept some distance between him. He said, the guy didn't dissipate this time. Kind of turned and went down, getting out of the bottom of the stairs, and he had to turn and go down like 2 more stairs, and then went into their living room where the fireplace was and everything. And so he started going through the living room, went through like the front foyer where you come in there, into the house. It was like their dining room, I think, too, kind of farther over. He went through and into the kitchen, and then at the very other end of the kitchen, they had like a little. I don't know what it was at one time, but they had their computer and stuff in there. They had like a Commodore 64 in there, and but he got into the kitchen. He said, the guy, Jim kind of stayed in the living room. He said, and the guy went all the way through the kitchen and then disappeared. And as he's telling me this, I'm kind of like, yeah, whatever, I don't. That's kind of probably bullshit, but. He was freaked out though, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, whatever, and I'm like, maybe you're just dreaming, He's like, I don't know, could have been, he's like, felt really real, and I'm like, yeah, and so, that was pretty much the extent of that, and then let's fast forward probably about a year or so, maybe 2. I think we were like 11 or 12, and his house caught on fire one time. There was actually in the chimney. There was something caught on fire. It was not winter yet, but it was cold. It was like late October, early to mid-November. It was cold, so they were having to heat their house already. And thankfully they were home, so they were able to call the fire department. And but something caught fire in the chimney, and it their house didn't burn down, but it did some significant damage. It did some smoke damage and a lot of fire damage in that room, and then like a lot of smoke damage to the rest of the house. And so they had to like rent, or I think their insurance covered it, but like they had to get a trailer, like a travel trailer, and they put it on their property for a while. And his dad, his dad was like one of those jack of all trades guys, and so he was like, well, I'm going to do some remodeling on the house, and they got an insurance payout, for it, and so they used that to put all new carpet in, and he fixed the where the fire damage was, and then a lot of the smoke damage. They pulled a whole bunch of stuff out and put all new cabinetry in. They totally remodeled the kitchen because the kitchen had been damaged pretty bad with smoke. And so throughout it took him probably about a half a year to do. And throughout that time, me and Jim would help him. He'd pay us a little bit, like $5, to help him for a while and stuff like that. And so we were in the kitchen one time, and we were tearing up floorboards, and so you had the linoleum. He already had it all stripped off, and then so there's just the hardwood floor under it, and that was of course like going this way across like the slatted wood or whatever they call it. I don't know, but the wood like sitting like this, going all the way across, and then the wood, the hardwood floor is laid across the other way. And so we were tearing off that, and so we got, a big portion of it done. And in between, where all those the wood was like this, there was all kinds of like insulation and dirt and all kinds of stuff. Like so the house was old, probably over 100 years old. And so we were like, we put on gloves, like leather work gloves, and we were reaching down in there. We were pulling out like old coins and like animal bones and all kinds of stuff, and newspaper. It was like old newspaper, like wadded up down there, and clippings and everything, all kinds of crazy stuff. And his dad put together like a pretty good sized coin collection of stuff we were pulling out of there. I don't know if any of it was worth it, but it was old. It was cool though. And so we were pulling all that stuff out of there, and then like Jim, like he took off one of his gloves to look at something, and then he was all excited and reached back down in there without his glove on, and all of a sudden he pulls his hand out. He's like, "Damn!" Like, and he had a pretty good sized cut on his like thumb or finger or whatever. He was bleeding, and he's like, what the heck, and so like he with the other hand that he had a glove on, he reached down in there, and at first we were thinking, oh, maybe he got bit by something, so he reached down in there, and it wasn't. He pulled out this like a piece of glass that literally had a photo like blown onto it or printed or whatever. I don't know how they did it, but and he's looking at it, and I see him just go pale white, and he's just like, his dad was kind of off doing something else, so he didn't see, and he just looks at it and he hands it to me, and he didn't even have to say anything. I looked at it and I was just, and it was that fucking guy that he had seen in his hallway. I mean, to a T, like literally exactly dressed, exactly how he had said, looked exactly like what he had said he looked like. And I just kind of like looked at him and just handed it back to him, and I was probably like, I had it shake, and I was just like, here, take this fucking thing back, and he I don't know if he ever told his folks about it or not, but I mean, he like was that pretty much, like he was like, and we talked about it later, after like we were there with his dad, and he's like, that's that's the guy that I saw. I'm like, I know. You don't have to tell me. I can tell you. I can tell that's who it is, and he's like, dude, I don't know. Like, I don't either. I mean, like, there was no fucking way he could have planted that. I mean, we literally tore up the floorboards right then and there, and this was like 2 years later, or a year and a half, 2 years later, and it wasn't like he had the floorboards torn up and then he called me and, hey, come over and let's go through the floor, and he hid this picture down there. There's no way he could have fucking faked it. It was, it was in there, when we pulled the floorboards up, and it was that guy, like to a fucking T. The hat, the beard, exactly the way he was dressed. It was a black and white photo, but it was like, and you could clearly tell his black coat. Like he had a very old style black tie, white shirt, and the collar too. I'm not saying it wasn't like collared like we have today. It was the kind that go around, like almost like a preacher's collar, but like it goes all the way around. It's not, like the little black part sticking through or whatever. It's like just a collar goes all the way around, and the suit coat sat on top of it. The hat, beard, everything. It was exactly what he had said. Exactly how he had described him. And I mean it. And then, like I said, the time when he said he followed the guy, he went into the kitchen, and Jim had said he stayed in the living room, but like watched him go into the kitchen and disappear. And that's where we found the picture. It was in the floor of the kitchen. And it was it was pretty creepy. It's still, to this day, I have zero explanation for it. That one, usually I can come up with something that'll explain it, and I got nothing for that one. I mean, the only way would be like that he at some point in time peeled up linoleum, peeled up part of the floor area, tore up some of the floorboards, put the picture down there, and then put everything back without his parents knowing, without me knowing, and then waited 2 years and then said like, oh, hey, look, here's the thing, the guy that I showed you. And of course that didn't happen. We were like 10, 11, 12 years old, whatever, and that's not what happened. I mean, like, it was in the floor, but man, that still, again, I mean, it didn't seem like he wasn't in danger or anything, by this entity that he saw. Again, I mean, I still deep down inside I think there's some type of logical explanation, but I got nothing for that one. Absolutely fucking nothing. And yeah, I have nothing. I have no explanation for that one. And that's almost one where I have to say like it had to have happened. You know, I mean, it's because I got nothing else. So, but that's pretty much it. I mean, there isn't much else to tell after that. I mean, like he found the picture, and we kind of talked about it a little bit later. Every now and then, we kind of bring it up and see if we either one of us had come up with any type of explanation. And never, neither one of us ever did. So I just kind of fell to the fell into the history of our friendship, you know. So, but I still think about it quite a bit, you know, because it's still just, you know, at the age I am now, and like, you know, over the years I've been very skeptical, and I'm like still like racking my brain. I'm like, there has to be an explanation for it, and I still feel there is, but I cannot come up with anything, and it's to the point where I'm just like, I almost have to say like it actually happened exactly the way that he said it did, you know. But so yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm kind of rambling now. So if anybody watching this, if you have any explanation, anything you can shed some possible light on it, any type of idea that you think might clarify it, please put it in the comments. So, and also if you haven't seen the other stories that I did a total of 4. I'll have links in the description if you want to check those out. So that's pretty much the end of this. That's pretty much all the stories I have. I'd love to say like, well, next Halloween I'll do this again, but I don't really have any other stories to share. Those are really the only ones. So, so anyway, I appreciate anybody who watched them. I hope they were entertaining, and they're not stories I'm making up. This is stuff that actually you know, I experienced. So maybe I hope it creeped you out a little bit, because that's kind of what I'm going for, you know, for being Halloween and everything. So as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for the support. This has been Timmy, aka Echo Side Fiend, and I will catch you in the next one.